I'm Eira Joy, and welcome to On Courage, a podcast that explores a fundamental virtue for each one of us, no matter our backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives. After a career setback, I wrestled deeply with self-doubt and fear, eventually realizing that in order to rebuild my confidence, I had to start by rediscovering my courage. I've been reading books and listening to experts, but I figured I needed to be surrounding myself with courageous people too. And that's why I'm here with you as you listen today, hopefully on board my mission to learn from creative people who have harnessed the power of courage to find success in their careers and fulfillment in their lives. This is a podcast on courage for all those who, like me, long to grow a little more courageous each and every day. Today I had the pleasure of chatting with Stephanie Lillis, a versatile actor who has performed in over 40 plays and has worked across television, short film, feature film, web series and voiceover. Steph is a friend that I made almost 20 years ago when we were just teenagers on a pilgrimage to Toronto, Canada to celebrate World Youth Day. It was such a joy to reconnect with Steph and to learn about her journey towards becoming an actor and about her love for the craft of acting. She shared such valuable wisdom around building resilience and finding strength in vulnerability. And I know that this episode will resonate with so many actors, but all creatives in that sense too. Steph is a wonderful example of why I started this podcast and why it's important to surround yourself with brave, positive people. Please enjoy. Hi, Steph. It's great to see you. Welcome
Hello.
to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited to chat with you today and explore this idea of courage as it pertains to your career and your life in general.
Yes.
But I might get you to start by introducing yourself and giving the listeners an idea of who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So I'm Steph and I'm an actor, and also recently I'm a drama teacher and a drama coach for young people. So as an actor, I do everything from theatre, film, short films, web series, voiceover, corporate, anything that I can get my hands on. And I'm currently teaching young people and coaching them for auditions. So yeah, that's me.
Well, and we're going to get into it, and I'm excited to hear your stories about the journey that has been becoming an actor and a working actor, and then, of course, into your teaching. But I might cast our minds back a few years, if we rewind the clock a little, and think of 10-year-old Steph and what she was dreaming up. You know, I'd like to know that in anything in your childhood that might have sparked your interest in the arts. So if you could take us down memory lane.
Take you back. Well, if you don't mind, I'll rewind a little bit further to when I was 7, because I had a very, very clear moment in time. I was in Sydney with my family visiting my grandfather, my dad's dad, who that was the one and only time I met him, was that one time. And I was in the hotel with my dad, and he said to me, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" Just sort of a general question you'd ask any child of 7. And he was throwing different sort of professions around, and he mentioned acting. I said, "What about an actor?" And I was like, "What's that?" And he described it to me. He said, "You play different characters, you perform for people." And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds amazing. I want to do that." And so after that trip, I remember we got home back to Melbourne, and I enrolled in Helen O'Grady drama classes, and I went every single week for years. I just was like, this is my passion. This is what I love. I just fell in love with it instantly. And from that moment in time, I haven't looked back. So yeah, it was very distinct. And then 10-year-old Steph, I actually dreamed of winning an Oscar by the time I was 10. So I think at 10 I was a bit disappointed I hadn't won the Oscar yet, but yeah.
And would you say
Yeah.
it was within your family this love for the arts? Like, I'm interested, or was it just out of the blue
Yeah.
that you were told, about this career path?
Yeah, I think my dad is he's an amazing storyteller, and he loves telling jokes, and he's very creative and theatrical. And I think he, in another life, would have been an actor. When he was actually, he used to work for St. John Ambulance doing first aid and everything. And they would do seminars, and he would get up and he would act out patients who would have like a stroke or a heart attack, and he would be the one acting these out. So I think I think I've inherited it from him, but I do come from a big family of people who love to sing and create, and a lot of my cousins, they are artists or musicians. So yeah, I think it's in my blood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wonderful to grow up as well around people who support it too, or who encourage your
Yes.
creativity. I think that's a
Yes.
very fortunate way to grow up, because there are people that perhaps are being led down specific paths. So I feel the same, that just really blessed that my parents nurtured that creativity in me. Just
Yes.
music and dance and just
Yes.
performing. So yeah, I think that really helps shaped who we've become, I guess. And as you've grown, so obviously you were involved in drama classes and just really falling in love with the performing arts. If we now fast forward to 18-year-old Steph, because things change
Yeah.
a little bit as you get older, and the pressures of
Yes.
life sometimes come into play. So what was 18-year-old Steph dreaming of, and what were her ideas of what life would be after school?
Yes. Still wanting to win an Oscar. I don't think I've ever let that go. Um, so yeah, when I was 18, there was kind of a different marker in time, because I had continued drama classes throughout school and doing all the school productions and productions outside of school, and I was very firmly an actor. Like that was who I am. That was what I was going to do with my life. And so in my VCE, I did drama, theatre studies, music, all the creative subjects. And I went to an amazing school where they really supported me. There weren't many students who were into performing arts at all. And they ran those VCE subjects for like 2 to 3 students. So they were just like, I hear of lots of places now that definitely wouldn't do that. So they were such a supportive school. And um, because I did those subjects in year 12, I ended up getting a really high enter score. I think it's called an ATAR now, but
Yes.
yeah, I got quite a high score, and I firmly believe it was because I was doing something that I was good at and that I love. Like, it's not if I did maths methods or chemistry or anything. I definitely not. Um, but so I had this score, this golden ticket, and it was sort of like I could do a lot of university degrees and go on to do professions that were high paying jobs. And I remember at 18, I was at the doctor's, and they asked me, what I had gotten, what my score was. And I told them, and they were like, "Oh, so you could do like almost anything like you want." And I was like, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, what are you going to do with this?" And I remember clearly in that moment having this vision of being in a university lecture theatre and just sitting there, like listening to a lecture, and I looking out the window, and outside on the grass at the university, there was this group of actors, and they were clowning around and jumping all over each other and creating some physical theatre piece. And they looked so happy. And I remember just thinking, that's where I want to be. I want to be outside, not inside. And yeah, that guided me. I was like, that's just such a clear distinction for me that I can't go down sort of a more academic path. I need to stick with what I love, even though, yeah, the kind of earning more money would be tempting, and I had this score, I was like, no. And then I ended up enrolling in a course where you didn't even need an enter. So
it it makes you think about the weight we put on things like that, especially,
yes,
you know, on young
yes,
people at that pivotal age. It's, you know, we
yeah,
to kind of reduce your, I suppose, potential for the future on a score seems
yes,
ridiculous, you know, but when you're in it, it
yes,
seems like the most important thing in the world. I'm curious about how you mustered up that courage to be able to follow what you wanted to do at such a young age rather than
yeah,
succumb to the pressures of others around you. How do you think
yeah.
you were able to do that, or is it just something that comes naturally?
I think I was influenced a lot by my parents and their acceptance of what I really love to do. And both of them have had careers where they've sort of followed their hearts. And my mum being a teacher and my dad working with aged and disabled people. And um, so I think the value from my family has always been on um, doing things that you're passionate about, um, following your heart, using the gifts that you're given and the skills that you're given rather than, right, what's the highest paying job that you can get. So I think a lot of it, I think they gave me a lot of confidence and courage. And I think I was just damn determined. I was like, this is what this is what I want to do. I'm not ready to sort of let go of it. And yeah, so I think it was both of those things from within, but also the support of my parents. Yeah, it was like there was no other choice.
Mm.
Yeah,
It's interesting too, though, because you mentioned how well you did, you know, in your studies,
yeah,
that chasing something that you love to do actually reaps rewards and helps you succeed anyway,
yes,
because I think that's another
yes,
misconception when it comes to the arts. Because I remember at the
yes,
time, you know, with our VCE was those subjects would be scaled down. They wouldn't
correct.
be, yeah,
Yeah,
garner as high results as your maths and sciences, but the fact that your
yes,
overall score was fantastic given you did only
yeah,
those subjects.
yeah,
That's, I think, an important insight for people, because if you do what you love and what you're passionate
yes,
about, at the end, it will reap
yes.
rewards for you.
Yes, that is such a good point. Like that's so true. And I think I sort of realized that as well. I was like, I think I'm going to be a much better actor and, you know, creative than a lawyer or a doctor. Like
Mm,
I just think that's not me. That's not who I am. But I think you're right. Just following what you're passionate about. I had the energy and the desire to throw myself into those subjects, and that's just the way my brain was wired. I didn't have to work so hard to kind of understand. Like I still don't understand chemistry. Like I'm still
oh,
like
you and me both.
I still, like there's no way. Like someone would explain something to me and I'd be like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's nice. Like that's not my expertise. So
Mm.
you're completely right. I think just seeing that I seeing that actual example of working really, really hard at something I loved and then getting those rewards did actually prove exactly what you said, that it would be worth sticking on this path. So,
Mm. And another key point you
yeah.
just highlighted then, just working really hard. I think that's another thing that gets
Yes.
overlooked, in that, you know, people follow their passions, but perhaps do so half-heartedly, or, you know,
Yes.
thinking they can wing it because they're
Yep.
naturally good, but hard work still is very important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that VCE year for me was a very clear example of, if I work so hard, I will get those results. Like I remember just being up till 3 a.m. a lot of days, just like throwing myself in. And I've taken that through to auditions that I've done, or projects that I've done, theatre projects. And I just think I just will work and work and work to get the best result. So I think that work ethic I really developed in year 12 because I saw again, like you said, that if I work really hard, I can sort of get that result.
Mm.
So
And
yeah,
and it's really great to know that there are people who you will meet along the way that do believe in you, because like you said with your school
yes,
and your teachers, running a class of
yes,
only 2 to 3 kids. Like I know that we our drama class, I think, because we were in a smaller school that wasn't really performing arts based, but they wouldn't
yeah,
run a drama class if there weren't at least
yes,
8 to 10 students. So the fact
yes,
that you had an environment that supported, I think, really helped as well. Like it made you,
yeah.
I suppose, it made you believe that what you were setting out to do, was valuable.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it placed value on the individual student. It's like, well, this is what Steph is good at. This is what she's passionate
Mm,
about. It's really valuable for us to run this class and allow her to do this subject. Yeah, I think most schools would only run the subject with a minimum of 8 to 10 students. It's kind
yeah.
of incredible that they did for me. So
Well, shout out
yeah.
to those teachers and other educators who do look at
Yes.
the individual student and help them with their
Yes.
needs. So fantastic.
Absolutely. It can take
Yeah.
someone a long way. So, yeah.
Yes, and well, it seems like it has for you. So from there, after graduating high school, getting into that, was a specialized performing arts school that you ended up in?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I ended up doing a Bachelor of Performing Arts with Monash University. So I did the undergraduate and then I did a year honours program as well. So, yeah, in that course, I learnt about acting, but also about theatre making. So, stage management, directing, lighting, costumes, everything within those years. So,
And did
yeah, it
you
was an
enjoy?
incredible course.
Yes, it was okay. And how
Yeah.
many people would you have been studying with at the time?
Um, I think I think there probably would have been about 40 of us.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
that's too many, but I feel like 40
40
sounds
usually for
like
arts courses is kind of, yes,
yeah,
it's sort of standard. I think
yeah,
I did media, so it was about 50 to 60 my
yeah,
cohort, so they tend to be
yeah.
smaller courses.
Yes,
And
yes,
what
yeah,
was it like for you, if you can remember, just obviously navigating uni life is one thing as well. You're getting a
yes.
sense of independence, and your identity starting to develop in terms of your adulthood. But do you remember what it was
Yes.
like being surrounded by other aspiring performers?
Oh my God. It was just the best. Like, even you just saying that, it just really felt like I'd found my tribe. I just found these like minded people who um, had all sort of come from similar backgrounds and were so passionate about it. And I made so many friends that I'm still friends with because we're so similar. We have that creative drive and that creative brain. And so many people I studied with have gone on to work professionally in different aspects of the creative arts. So, directing, presenting, writing, acting, just, yeah, the people that course produces are just incredible theatre makers and very resilient in a way because we learn all different aspects of the craft
Mm.
rather than it just being, right, I'm just here to be an actor and learn about acting. Um, so yeah, it was great. It was great, and I did a lot of student theatre as well. So I met a lot of people that were doing different subjects, but still very creative. And yeah,
Did
it was
you
incredible.
Are you a competitive person, Steph? Did you find at any point that sense of, just, I don't know, of feeling wary of others who are perhaps pursuing your specific pathway, or was it just generally a supportive culture?
I only remember it being supportive. And it's funny you say that because it is a very competitive industry,
Mm.
but for some reason I have been so lucky to be surrounded or end up in environments where the people are so supportive. So I did performing arts, the undergraduate at Monash, and then a few years after that, I did a full-time acting program at a drama school in Melbourne called 16th Street Actor Studio. So it was year long, and it focused on lots of different acting techniques, but film and television as well as theatre sort of techniques. And the cohort I had, the group of people I had, were so supportive, like just incredible. Like if you have a win in class, like you got to some, emotional depth, or you really nailed a scene, people would just cheer you on, like yes. And I just remember thinking, God, how lucky am I? Like we're all in the same boat in such a tough industry, but yet we are all just so supportive of each other. So I think I've been really lucky in both those courses and in my friendship group, that I don't feel like I'm surrounded by a competitive environment, even though it is a very competitive industry.
That's actually
So I
really,
just feel really lucky. Yeah.
yeah, that's so refreshing to hear actually. Like I'm glad to, get a different perspective on things, because often,
Yeah.
when you talk to creatives, there have been negative experiences with being around people. And perhaps it's the school you go to, or the type of creativity it is as well. I think there are different
Yes.
shades of it.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of it
Yeah.
too is what you bring. And I can already get a sense of how positive you are as a person, and how much
Thank you.
joyful spirit you bring to it. So I'm sure that's a part of it as well, that, you're surrounding yourself with like minded people. So it is generally that positive environment. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as well, we're all in a lot of ways aware that the industry is tough, and um, there's no point pulling each other down, because that's not how you're going to succeed. It's the way that roles are cast. It's so out of our control as actors. Like we can control how hard we work, or keeping up our training, or things like that. But yeah, there's no point me pulling down my fellow actor, because that's not going to help me get ahead. I think by inspiring each other, by supporting each other, that's the way to go. It's
Mm.
yeah, and I think as well, it's really important, and what I found over the years, to surround myself with really inspiring, positive people, because it is such a tough industry, and we all have success and failure. Like we all have ebbs and flows. And yeah, I think having that supportive community is really, really important
Mm.
within that, rather than just being like, I'm just in it for myself. And
Mm.
yeah,
Mm.
I'm sure people do have many, many negative experiences, but I've been really, really lucky.
Yeah.
So
And I think it also depends on your mission, or your objective when it comes to
yes,
your craft, because I find that if
yes,
you're in it because of the pure love for
yes,
what you're doing, then that competitive stuff kind of is not on your radar, because you just want to be a part of
yes,
something where you can collaborate with others creatively. Whereas if your goal really is to be famous, or be,
yeah,
or earn a certain
yeah,
amount of money, then you're prepared to step over people, and your
yes.
motives change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I just think I would feel so yucky doing things like that, things that aren't connected to your genuine self or your authentic self. It's just like, yeah, I just find that really, really yucky. But yeah, like you said, you're in it for the love of it. And I think I am competitive, but I think I'm competitive with myself. I'm like, oh, Steph, you could have done better with that, or push yourself harder, or you can really go for it. I think that's really one way to keep sane, is like you're on your own journey. Um, yeah, because I think if you
Yes.
start comparing yourself, it can just lead you down a road that's not fun.
Yes. And, competing with yourself, doing that self work is already enough of a, task. So to actually put more people into the
Yes.
fold through comparison just seems
Yes.
silly, because we're
Yes.
battling with our own insecurities and,
Our
and
own
doubts
stuff.
as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'd like to kind of dive more into that, because I
Yeah.
know that there is insight that you have to share, especially in
Yeah.
acting, because I suppose it is an industry that is driven by, the outward success, the kind of
Yes,
roles you book, or like, are you seen on TV, or are you, the
totally.
publicity and all that kind of thing, the fame. But we rarely discuss the actual work and the process of it, how you get
Yes.
there, because as we know, the road to success is really paved with many multiple failures, right? And multiple trials and
Yes.
challenges. So if I
Yes.
can, I'd love to ask you to share a bit about your experience with failure, and
Yeah.
focusing more on you and your own personal trials when it comes to your
Mm.
building yourself up as an actor.
Yeah. I think it's quite difficult being a creative person because a lot of creative people are really sensitive. And I think to be what I've learned over the years, to be a really great actor, you have to be really vulnerable. So you have to be willing to open up your heart and reveal yourself and all of those things. But at the same time, um, you do have to become used to having many, many setbacks. And I feel like I have failed many, 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 many times in the sense of going for something and not getting it. So auditioning and not getting a role is very, very much part of the actor's process. And I wouldn't even know how many auditions I've gone for. Like it would be in the hundreds, possibly thousands of auditions and roles, um, and roles that I would work so hard on, and I'd imagine playing that role and what that role would mean for my career, and roles that would bring fame and notoriety, and then not getting them. And so, yeah, I think I've become sort of used to that. That's just a big part of it. But I think my one of my first experiences of failure was when I did leave high school, and what I really wanted to do was get into one of the main drama schools in Australia. So there are three kind of main big schools, and I just thought, yeah, this is what I want to do. Like this will lead me to the Oscar that I want to win, and the fame and success. Um, and when I left school, I auditioned for all three of those drama schools, and I didn't get a call back for any of them. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crushing. Like, I've come from a school where I was performing arts captain and did really well in my drama subjects and always played, major roles in school musicals. And so I just wasn't used to, I guess, being a small fish in a big pond. And so I really felt that I'd failed. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And that's when I enrolled in the Bachelor of Performing Arts at Monash University, and then went on to do the training there and more training over the years. But yeah, I think I had to really adjust my mindset when I didn't get into those drama schools, and I auditioned for them for a few years that followed. And I was like, oh, I'll get in there and then everything will be great. And I just never got in. And yeah, I think looking back now, it's absolutely not necessary to do your training there. There are so many other options, but I had to really wrestle with that failure and what that meant for me as an actor. I'm like, oh well, I mustn't be very good if I can't get into these schools, but they're incredibly hard to get into, and I just wasn't right for them. So yeah, I think I just found my own way with my training, and um, have potentially done like years and years and years of training to sort of make up for that, I guess.
Thank you for sharing that, Steph. I think it. That is so insightful to hear, because I think a lot of like young people feel
Mm.
as though their career depends on getting into one of those schools, or
Yes.
not even their career, but their talent and their worth is
Yes.
dependent on getting one
Yes.
in one of those schools. And I
Yeah.
absolutely agree with you. It isn't necessary. I think a lot of well-known actors didn't even train. They
Yes.
were like
Yes. Yes.
spotted as
Yes.
talent scouted, and or they're learning on the
Correct.
job. So and
Yes.
I think this goes back to this idea of, success, our idea of success being so narrow because of the
Yes.
way that society and, maybe the media culture has kind of showcased it. It's like
Yes.
it's this school, if it's you work at this company, or it's if you earn
Yes.
this amount of money or own this kind of
Yes.
car, all those kind of things, which is something I like to challenge all the time. Because in my own
Yes.
experience, I feel like that's it's just too simplistic to
Yes.
reduce ourselves, especially as creatives, to having hit one of those targets. So I
Absolutely.
appreciate you opening up about that and showing people that there are other ways. It's not like you missed out on
Absolutely.
training because
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the training that I got at Monash in the performing arts degree, as I said before, I was training in directing and writing and theatre making. Like, I just got this broad sort of training. And then in our final honours year, it actually focused more on acting. And we were working with some of the most amazing directors and drama teachers. Um, and then when I did 16th Street, again, working with incredible teachers from all over the world, and teachers that are professional actors and professional directors. And I also studied clowning in Paris, and all these
amazing.
things that I just kind of kept pursuing training because I was like, it's never enough. And I really love actually studying the craft of acting. I don't think I'm ever gonna stop doing classes because I think there's always more to learn. So
Mm.
yeah, like you said, that limited view of success, I think I just thought, yeah, this is my path. I'm just going to get into one of these drama schools. And when I didn't, I just thought, oh well, this means I'm a terrible actor. And this means that I'm not going to be able to be an actor. And it really doesn't. And
Mm.
I think the training at those schools is incredible, and the actors that come out of those schools are amazing. But like you said, many actors do no training at all. Um, so it's not linear. It's not like, you go and do this and then all of a sudden you're famous. It's not that kind of career.
Mm, mm. And I'd like to bet that your experience in the path that you went was much more fruitful because you talked about what a supportive environment and cohort of people you were
Yes.
around. And I would
Yeah.
I would think, this is me without any, real hardcore evidence, but I would think at one of those three major schools, that level of competition would be much, much tougher to navigate
Yeah,
because,
potentially.
yeah,
Yeah.
because everyone's who gets in that school has that. I suppose it maybe comes already with that feeling that you're good enough to get in that school, you're talented enough, so
Yeah.
it only follows that the fame is on its way. So perhaps the culture wouldn't have been as supportive. That's what I like to think anyway. In a
Potentially.
smaller school,
Yeah.
because
Potentially. I mean, it's hard. Yeah.
it's hard to
Hard to
know.
know because
It's
it,
hard to know, but I
yeah.
think that I've learned that the more humble environments tend to be more
Yes.
nurturing. Then
Yes.
and this goes for my experience in the corporate world, big companies and things like that. People are
Yes.
less, I suppose, in it to collaborate and more in it for their own personal motives. Which nothing's wrong with ambition,
Absolutely.
but at the same time,
Yes.
if you love the craft, it's good to be around people who share that same spirit around it.
Yeah, that pure love rather
Yeah.
than the competitive kind of yeah, I just yeah, I don't think I'd feel very good in that at all. I don't think I would thrive in that. Um
Mm.
yeah,
So it
I
was meant
think
to
potentially
be. Yeah.
it was meant to be. Yeah, it was
Mm.
definitely meant to be. And it's funny now that I work for a music theatre school for kids, and the environment and the culture of the school that I work for is one of supportiveness and love, and it doesn't have sort of that competitive overtone. It's a place where kids can go and have fun and build their confidence and use their imagination. So just reflecting upon that now, it's like maybe this was always meant to be my
Yes.
journey. Maybe that's because
Yes.
what I feel most comfortable in.
Yes. And that's the part of the gifts that you have to nurture the next generation as well, to
Yes,
get them
yeah,
to love the craft as opposed to seeing it as a pathway to things that perhaps at the end of the day aren't really sustainable or don't
yeah,
matter as much when it comes to, fame and notoriety and all that kind of thing.
yes,
Um,
yes,
but you did mention though that you are competitive with yourself. So I would like to,
yes,
yeah, pick your brain more about um, auditions, because to me,
yeah.
the life of an actor and the process of being an actor is something I admire, because I just don't think I would be cut out for it. And the fact that you can prepare yourself so much to just audition for something that there's no guarantee you will land, and to be
Mm.
rejected time and time again takes just such sheer resilience. And I just want to know what that's been like for you. If you think back to your first audition out of university or even high school, and to now when you do your self tapes and auditions. Obviously, the industry's changed as well, but from a personal standpoint, like, how do you think you've grown?
Wow, that's an amazing question. I think I've grown in the sense of that I know more. Like I think back to some of the auditions I did as a teenager and as a young adult, and I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know that much about screen acting or didn't have that level of experience with the craft. But I still put myself out there, and I was auditioning for big projects when I was young, and I had my first professional acting job on Blue Heelers when I was like 19 years old, and um, I think I've learnt to prepare very quickly, because often with auditions you might have a few days to audition for a massive role. So you might have like two scenes and a big character breakdown. And as we spoke about before, I'm someone that I like to be prepared. I like to work really, really hard. And I think that's something that I've learnt to master over the years, is how to prepare quickly and efficiently, rather than I need to stay up till 5 a.m. like every night before the audition doing every possible thing I can. So yeah, I'm just thinking back to some big auditions I had where I would just get the audition. I remember this one I got on the Wednesday. Um, and it was for a really, really big role on Neighbours, like a 3-year contract. And it was one of those things where I was like, oh my God, this is the role, like this is the one. And I just, yeah, it was playing the daughter of a character, and I looked like the mum, and I was like, yes, I can do this. This is it. Um, and on the day of the audition, I actually couldn't attend the in-person audition because I was in Dubbo performing a theatre and education show for an Indigenous community, which I already had booked in. So I was like, I have to go to Dubbo to perform this show. I can't go to this Neighbours audition. And they said, right, that's fine. Just film a self-tape. And now self-tapes are the way of auditioning. So, but back then it was sort of a last resort. So I had this huge audition, 2 scenes to learn, and I also was flying to Dubbo to do this show. And I remember in the space of days, I learnt the script. I came up with a character background. I had my hair done. I had a full costume that I'd bought, and I'd made her so that she was very stylish. And I'd spent all this money on the right earrings and top and lipstick and everything. And I flew to Dubbo. I did the show. I came back on the Saturday. I had 2 coachings with different teachers back to back. And on the Sunday, I filmed the audition. And I just I think the ability with auditioning, the ability to work very hard, very quickly, is something that I've learnt over the years. Like, what do I need to do with this amount of time to prepare? So that's one thing I think I've grown in just refining what I do for auditions, but also just my attitude towards auditions, because a lot of the time I've realized over the years, people who get cast, so when the role is being cast, it may not come down to your talent or how well you've played the character. It may come down to, we wanted someone with dark hair rather than blonde hair, or someone slightly older or slightly younger. So the thing that they've based the casting on isn't necessarily how well you've done, which shouldn't be something that is disheartening, but almost liberating. So I have learnt more now to approach auditions as an opportunity to play that character. So seeing it as an audition more as a performance of this character. So assuming I already have the role and this is me performing the character, with my insight into it, my experience, my creativity. So seeing it something that's joyful rather than like an exam or a test that I must pass, because you don't know what they're basing the casting on. So it's an opportunity to be creative and to act. I think they're the two kind of things that I've learned over the years, with auditioning, and also to do it very quickly.
Yes. I honestly
Very
feel like we are
quickly.
in an acting masterclass right now, Steph.
Oh
Honestly,
god.
those were, yes, that was some really great advice and wisdom, when it comes to approaching the craft of acting. I think you kind of split it in the two segments, because the first centers more on the practical nature of, auditioning
Yes.
and preparing yourself and doing the work,
Yeah.
research and study and
Yeah.
rehearsal and that kind of thing, and down to getting a costume and and
Yeah.
presenting yourself. That's the practical side of things, which I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't know goes on, is what's involved in actually just auditioning, and then you've kind
Yes.
of come in with that, so less practical and more, as you said, about your attitude and your mindset
Yes.
around auditions, which I just think young aspiring actors don't know that path around it, because it's almost like you come in with this sense of perhaps entitlement that you'll get a role, whereas you look at the audition itself as an opportunity, not as like a ticket to just getting the guaranteed job. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that I talk to the young people that I coach, I always say to them, every audition is an opportunity to act, and work on your craft. Like, every audition is that opportunity. But also, if you are invited to audition for something, that's a huge win. If a casting director has said, right, we want to see Stephanie for this role, immediately you go, okay, that's a success. And
Mm.
seeing that as something, that is worth celebrating, because they don't see everyone for every role. So whether you get the audition or not, again, it could come down to something really, really small. But the fact that they want to see you as this character means that, they could see you playing the role, and they believe in you and think that you're worthwhile. So,
Yeah.
when it comes to success, I think it's worth noting those small wins,
Yes.
along the way.
And making that mindset shift, because as you said before, it
Yes,
is liberating when you kind of take away the pressure of having to book the job and just see this as another
yes,
chance to perform.
yes,
Yeah. Oh, I
yes,
love that.
absolutely.
Mm.
I look back on that Neighbours audition, and I have so much pride, and I'm just like, how did I do that? How did I do
Yeah.
that? Like, in that time, and I was back and forth to Dubbo doing like an hour-long show that I had to, like, a really intense performance as well, that
Yeah.
I had to really throw myself into and know this script, and then learning these other scripts. And so
Mm.
I think it's worth, every time you do an audition, you do really well, and even as well, gosh, this is another thing. I think I've learned also to debrief with myself after auditions,
Mm.
and just sort of say honestly, what did I enjoy about it, or what do I think went well? What would I work on for next time? Even going into auditions and meeting casting directors and waiting in the waiting room, just kind of assessing, okay, how did I go? Um, did the nerves get the better of me? Was I, calm and relaxed in front of the casting director? Just assessing all of that, I think, is an important part of the craft,
Yeah.
rather than just going, oh, that was terrible. Going,
Yes.
okay, what did I like? Like, what did go well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all part of the craft.
Well, I think that applies to almost everything, like, beyond just acting as well. Like anyone going for an interview or, doing
Yes,
being part of some big, event, or it's always having that opportunity to self reflect and debrief. I think is
yes,
something we don't tend to do naturally. It's like
yes,
you're right that we often, are reactive, if things don't go well, it's kind of annoyance, or like if you're like me, it's a bit more of self-pity and a bit of
yes,
wallowing in the things, the mistakes that you made. But I think everyone could benefit from just taking a minute to just say, okay, how did I find that? Was it an enjoyable experience?
yes,
Did I enjoy that interaction with that person? Did I present myself
yes,
good in that interview? I think, yeah, that's really good
yes.
general life advice and career advice, I should say.
Yeah. I had an acting teacher who was just absolutely amazing, one of my favorites. And every time we got up to do a scene, she would ask the same questions. She would say, what did you like about what you did? And what would you work on? So have
Mm.
that kind of self-reflection straight away.
Yes.
And also because often I would do a scene and I'd again be like, that was terrible. But kind of the first thing being, well, what do you like? And even if it was like, I liked how I said that one line, or at
Yeah.
least you can kind of focus on one positive before you move on to
Yes.
the important analysis, so that you can learn and move
Mm.
forward. It's important to be able to analyze your performance.
Yes. And I think creatives generally maybe do that better, because I think it reminds me of, the sporting industry. After any AFL match,
Yes.
the team would, and the coach will be in the room
Yes.
rewatching the game and analyzing it and picking out, places for
Yes.
improvement. And I think perhaps we can do that more. Well, I know that I haven't been around creatives who do that a lot. So it's really nice to hear
Yes.
that you've tapped into that, and something, yeah, you're making me think. I think I need to do that more in my own life and my work as well.
Well,
So,
it's hard because our as creatives, we're our own product. It's a personal
yeah.
industry, and
Mm.
so it's hard not to feel like to take it personally, but to sort of step away and go, right. If I was playing a football match and I went out there to play that match, or I went out there to audition, what rewatch the tape. You may need a day just to sort of lick your wounds and
Yes. Yeah.
just kind of do that. But then, yeah, when you have a bit more space, just go, okay, what
Mm.
can I learn from what happened? And congratulate yourself for being vulnerable to put yourself out there.
Mm.
I think
Mm.
that's important.
Speaking of vulnerability, this is another a part of what you do that I admire, and that to me really showcases courage, and that having that courageous spirit is the ability to kind of take off the mask and
Mm.
humble yourself and allow your collaborators, the casting directors, other fellow actors, just lifting the veil on, your emotions. I'd
Absolutely.
like to know more about your process around accessing emotions as an actor, and how you are able to be vulnerable enough and not be self-conscious, because that's something that I struggle with. So I really would, yeah, like to pick your brain about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think throughout my acting training, that's been um, one of the things that has been the hardest, but also one of the things that I love the most, is being able to be vulnerable and tapping into my own vulnerability. Um, I remember at 16th Street, just something that I kept getting told was, vulnerability is strength, Steph. Vulnerability is strength. It's not, putting up this facade, or persona, that's being vulnerable and letting your guard down is actually strong, and what makes you a good actor. And I think tapping into all of that is incredibly difficult, but incredibly satisfying when you really have that moment of connecting with a character's emotion. I think for me, the way that I've always accessed it is I've tried to put myself in their shoes or connect what they're going through with something that I've gone through in my life. Even if it isn't a direct correlation, I manage somehow to try and understand, to use my empathy to understand what that character is going through and to feel what they're feeling and to go back to that time. And to make what's important to them as important to me. So, yeah, for example, if they are upset about a pet passing away, I might think about, when my beautiful dog passed away and try and connect that to my life experience. Or if something hasn't happened to me, I might imagine what it would be like for that to happen to me, or again, use a similar experience. So I have learnt that I do have to tap into what I know to be able to access those emotions. But yeah, it is challenging, but it's so rewarding. And it's part of why I love acting, I guess, is to allow the human experience and for people watching to be affected by my performance and by the story that I'm telling. They might be going through a similar thing in their life and they can connect to that character. Or they may watch that character going through that experience and think, wow, I've never been through that. And now I can see what it would be like. And it makes their understanding of the human condition deeper. So, yeah, it is a really, really difficult thing, but it's yeah, I think as I get older as well and have more and more life experience, in a way it gets easier. My heart just keeps opening. But I think in the acting training I've done, I've I've had to learn a lot about myself. And that's one of the things I love about acting training is you just learn a lot about yourself and your own background and why you might put up those guards and how you can bring them down gently and take care of yourself within that. Because that's also a really important part. If you play a role that's really, like I played this incredible role from a play called Proof, and I played the main character, Catherine, and she just went on this incredible journey. And I remember after I played that role, I really had to take a lot of care around myself, my own mental health, and because I've worked on that character for about 9 months. It's an incredible process, but it's almost like, yeah, I can't help but feel what those characters are feeling, and they're a part of me and I'm a part of them, like all of those characters. But it's what I love about it.
In life, we deal with very traumatic experiences and
Yes.
negative emotions, uncomfortable feelings. So
Yes.
to be able to confront that takes courage. And I think, a lot
Yeah.
of us in our day-to-day lives just tend to avoid having to do that, and instead, look for
Yeah.
distraction or, occupy our minds with other things just to avoid
Yeah.
those feelings. So that's another reason why I'm so curious around the craft that you so love, because you really have to be brave to do that to every night after
Yeah.
night, because as you said, accessing a character's emotions requires you to delve
Yeah.
into your own.
Absolutely. It's like the instinct is to try and distract yourself from those negative experiences or those emotions. And in a way, the actor's life is to go straight into it.
Yes, yes.
Is to just go straight into it.
There's this beautiful review about your portrayal of Jenny in The Shape of Things, which is a play that I did.
Oh,
So Ruth Richter from Stage Whispers says, there was a standout moment by Stephanie Lillis when she has a moment of intense emotion that flares her character into truth. That flares her character into
Oh,
truth. And I just thought, yeah.
it makes me emotional.
It actually just, encapsulates everything that you've shared there, that your goal as an actor on that stage or on screen
Mm.
is to
Oh,
reflect back a character's truth to the audience. So you
yes.
have done over 40 plays and you've been
Yes.
on TV and you've done, all a range of other kind of projects. I'd like to know, what was the most challenging role and what was the most rewarding role you've done so far? They could be the same. They could be
Oh,
the same.
oh, Catherine from Proof was the most challenging. Was the most challenging. She was a very complicated character. Her father was schizophrenic and had passed away, and she was dealing with her own battles with mental health and whether she was going to go down that line. And she was volatile and emotional, and in a lot of ways, her personality was almost the opposite to mine. So it took a lot of work for me to get into that character. But it, and also it was the lead character. So, and lead characters have different amounts to do in each project, but this character was on in every scene for 2 hours bar one scene. So yeah, it was a huge production. But it was just an incredible production. I've played so many amazing characters, Ira. I just want to tell you about them all. Jenny, actually, the review that you just read out, it made me feel a bit emotional because Jenny's one of my favorite characters, because she was just such a joy to play, and yeah, she did have one of those moments where she was such a nice, kind of happy, positive person. And it was funny because I actually never auditioned for that part. The director, who also, no, the producer of the play, who also acted in the play, he met me. I was working at the bar at Red Stitch Actors Theatre, and he saw me, and he might have heard of my work or knew me prior to that. But I remember he was just like, "You're Jenny." And that's how I got the role. And it was such a joy to play that character. But that wasn't your question. It wasn't about joy. It was about challenging
And
and
rewarding.
rewarding. Yeah, I think when I got to the end of Proof, I was like, with Catherine, I was like, wow, that was 9 months. And yeah, the work I did on that. And not only was it playing the character, but the way that the season was structured is that we had performances in Melbourne, and then we had a few weeks off and we'd have a performance in regional Victoria. Then we'd have a few weeks off and we'd have another performance in regional Victoria. And we'd drive to the theatre, we'd bump in the show. This is all on the one day. We'd bump in the show, we'd perform the 2 hour show. And prior to that, I would do a line run with the other actors. So a full line run of the show. Then I'd perform the show, and then we'd bump out and then we'd drive home. So it was just a big an experience as well. But yeah, some of the depths I had to go to play that character were pretty intense. So yeah, that's sort of one that comes to my mind. But there's lots of different. I played a character. I love playing real people as well. I did this production about James Joyce, the writer, and I played his daughter, Lucia Joyce. And yeah, that was incredible, doing research on a real person. And so yeah, it's just, yeah, they're the ones that sort of stick out. But there's many.
I think we're going to have to get you back on another episode where we just go through the catalogue of your whole career. You can tell us all about it, which is, again, such a fascinating thing for me because, you get to live different lives. You know how they say
Yes.
when you read, when you like you read a book, you get to
Yes.
have adventures or live lives that you'd never would. But I think it's the
Yes.
same for acting, because you just get to
Absolutely.
play and imagine. And yeah, I look, I
Yeah.
would. It's been something that I've been curious about, but I just really don't think I have the talent for it. I used to do the school musicals because music is more my thing. But I used to
Oh,
do school musicals, but acting was always my weakest weakest one. I think I'm too
oh.
self-conscious. So you might have to give me some lessons.
Yeah, I'd be so happy to. I was going to say you should just enroll in like a fun acting class and, see how you go. Yeah, it's a real joy. And exactly what you said about having all these different lives. I used to think, I'm like, maybe I'm just really indecisive and I don't know what I want to do with my life. So I'll just be an actor and I'll just get to live out, play lawyers and doctors and all these different dancers and people with different professions and just get to learn about their professions and without ever having to actually do that profession.
Another thing I'd like to ask you is, because even if when you've found something that you're passionate about doing, obviously there's hard work involved in it, and there's like ebbs and flows. What's the thing that something that you do, and you mentioned before of looking after yourself with your mental health and things,
Yeah,
but when you kind of lose that momentum with your creativity, or
yeah.
motivation to perform or to feel your best, what are some of the things that you do to get yourself back up?
Yeah, I think something that I've learned over the years, particularly sort of in my 30s, is you can be creative in really small ways. Because now that I have a small child and sometimes my time is more limited, so I try to think of things that are, if I can't do a full production because of time constraints, I might try to look at a monologue from a play that I really love and work on that by myself, or um, enroll in an acting class, or any sort of auditions that come my way, just sort of throw myself into that. So I think that's something I've learned is I can be creative in smaller ways. Another thing that I absolutely love is a book called The Artist's Way, and it's actually a 12-week course. You're nodding.
Yes,
You've
I've
heard
heard
of
of it.
this?
Yes.
Or, yeah. So I think I've actually done the course, and I really hope to do it again because it reset my creativity and it kind of unlocked a few of those barriers for me at the time. And yeah, I think that is a really good way to sort of, if I lose motivation or just feel creatively blocked, just to start that process again.
Mm.
So I think doing acting often relies on other people giving you an opportunity or giving you work. And if that's not happening, then finding ways to give that to yourself is a really good
Yes.
motivator.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
think you are someone, as you've shown, that loves to learn, and I think that's really important,
Yes.
to keep searching
Yes.
for knowledge, or being curious to find ways
Yes.
to improve or to expand your understanding of things. I think is so important, because I heard the quote. It's that often we feel that we have to wait for inspiration to strike, but I've heard that
Yes.
the muse visits during creation. So you have to
Ah,
create, you have to be actively doing
yes.
things, as you've said,
Yes.
doing a class, reading something,
Yep.
doing a course or whatever it is, and then inspiration will find you rather than
Absolutely.
the
Not
other
just
way.
sitting around
Yeah.
waiting. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, I think,
Yeah.
testament to what you do in your life, which is awesome. As we head towards sort of the tail end of our conversation, I'm going to hit you with the big questions now. So,
Yes. Hit me.
so Steph, in your life and in your career, and now being a mum, I'd like to know your definition of courage, and how do you see courage? How does it play out for you, or in the many ways that it does, for you personally?
Yeah. I think courage is being true to yourself and following what you want to do, no matter the risk of failure or criticism or judgment. by others. I think courage is vulnerability, like we spoke about before. Vulnerability is strength. I think being truly vulnerable and authentic to who you are, and having that courage to be yourself. And I think courage can look very different for everyone. So, courage for some people may be to walk out on stage in front of thousands of people and perform, or play a football match and have millions of people watching you. Or for some people, courage could be just getting out of bed in the morning if you're feeling low. So, I think everybody is capable of courage, and everybody is being courageous in their own way. But yeah, I think for me, it's having the courage to be myself, and do what I want to do and put myself out there, even at the risk of failure or judgment.
Amazing. And I am someone who loves a metaphor, loves an analogy. I'm a bit of a
Yes.
word nerd. So if we think of courage being your main course, like it's your main plate of courage,
Yes. Yep. Yep.
what do you believe pairs well with your plate of courage? So do we have a side dish or something, or a nice beverage that complements your your main course? So what pairs well? What pairs well with courage?
Yeah. I think a nice warm cup of self compassion is really important. Just knowing that if you put yourself out there and you're being vulnerable and you're risking failure or judgment, knowing that if it doesn't go well, you can come back to yourself and take care of yourself, and talk to yourself like you would a small child or your best friend, not beating yourself up and saying you're a failure and that of course you were going to fail, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have risked it. I think something that I've learned is just to, be self compassionate and take care of myself, and have a nice warm cup of something delicious or a nice bath, and go, well done, you gave it your best shot. And I think, knowing that you can take care of yourself in the face of failure, it gives you the motivation to try again next time. Um, Yeah, I think also just having a positive mindset, and knowing that if it doesn't go your way, then you can always pivot and try something else. I think, yeah, that pairs well
Love
with
it.
courage. A nice dessert of
Yes.
positive
I
mindset.
love it. That sounds like a very fulfilling, nourishing meal. So
Yes, yes.
awesome. And is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners, Steph? Anything, any other words of wisdom around creativity and pursuing a career in the arts?
Yeah, I think staying true to yourself and following what you love is really important. And I think something that I've learned over the years is just to have small, achievable goals. As creatives, we often have big dreams to, reach the highest of heights. And I think that's amazing. But if you can just have a small, achievable goal and then achieve that, tick that off, and move on to the next, that can also help you get through if you're feeling like you're not achieving anything. So, I think that would be some advice. And whatever you do, find ways to be creative in your life, even if it's putting on a piece of music and dancing, or singing to something in the car, or making a delicious meal. I think there's so many ways to be creative. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Steph, I'd like to take this moment just to acknowledge you and to say thank you for not only spending time with me today, but for being an example of courage in my life. And it's crazy to think that we first met when we were teenagers. So back when we were
I
like
know.
16, 17
Oh
years
my
old.
gosh.
Um,
20 years
20
ago.
years. But
Ah.
I will always remember that positive spirit that you brought into to my life back then, and I think you haven't changed on that front. So I acknowledge you for being someone who showed a humble confidence, because I feel like you were someone that I looked to who had confidence that I didn't have who I still don't have
Oh,
in some ways. And you had this when I remember 16-year-old, you just kind of you radiated this joy, and with the people that we were around. And that's why I kind of remembered you when I wanted to put this podcast together. And I thought I have to, as you said earlier, surround myself with people who lift me up and make me I feel like I can do anything. So I want to thank you for that, and for also
well,
sharing your wisdom today, not only for actors, but I think just for all types of creatives and just people in general around navigating rejection and building resilience as you kind of work towards your goals, and you do that with such, as I said, humility. So thank you, Steph.
thank
uh,
you. Thank you for reaching out to me and for having me on your podcast and for creating such an amazing podcast that people can listen to and hear different experiences. And yeah, I think it's an amazing project. So thank you. And for being someone that I remember having so much joy as well.
Oh,
So
thank
thank
you.
you.
And lastly, please feel free to tell the listeners where we can follow your work and if they can connect with you online.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So my website is stephanielillis.com, and you can find all information about my past projects, current projects, drama coaching, and to get in touch.
Stephanie Lillis, it's been a pleasure.